Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Speaker, today the Auditor General released a scathing audit on the top Arise scam fraudster GC Strategies. This two-person basement dwelling company feasted on 64 million taxpayer dollars. This was a direct gift from the Liberal government who allowed basic procurement rules to be completely ignored over the last 10 years. Canadians still don't know who did the work, what was done, if they were qualified, if they had security clearances. This is complete government incompetence. The ask is simple. When will taxpayers get their money back?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. I thank the Auditor General for her service. I note that GC Strategy has been prohibited from government contracts for 7 years, and it's that standard, the minimum. As a member of Canada's new government and a new member of Parliament, we will uphold higher standards, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Mr. Speaker, shockingly, the very same Liberal ministers who had their fingerprints all over the Arise scam are still in cabinet today. Right. Namely, the Jobs Minister, the U.S. Trade Minister, and his Foreign Affairs Minister. Their lack of ministerial responsibility is both negligent and inexcusable. The fraudulent payment of $64 million isn't just about reckless spending, it's a total waste of taxpayer dollars and a betrayal of Canadians who are living through a cost of living crisis. So I ask the Prime Minister again, when will taxpayers get their money back?
That's a good question.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to commend the members opposite for supporting the Making Life More Affordable Act to get taxpayer dollars back to Canadians and commit. This government is committed. This new government is committed to making the best use of all taxpayers' dollars.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General just slammed these Liberals in her report this morning and said what we've known all along. The Liberals have broken our military. Today's F-35 report criticized the Liberals for misleading cost projections that are 50% higher by over $14 billion, ongoing construction delays for necessary infrastructure, ignoring the severe pilot and mechanic shortage, and implementing weak oversight mechanisms. The ministers who are responsible for this debacle are still sitting in here. Will the Prime Minister hold them accountable for this mess?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know if the member opposite holds himself accountable for letting military spending fall below 1% of GDP when the Conservatives were in government. This government has doubled military spending in cash terms. We are meeting our NATO obligations this year, leading from the front.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake.
Prime Minister, we actually delivered for our military. We bought brand new 5 CF-18 Bullmasters, new Hertz, new Leopard tanks, new Chinook helicopters. We delivered. Instead, what we got here is an Auditor General report referenced her 2018 report on Canada's fighter jets. That report said the biggest obstacle to meeting operational requirements was a shortage of fighter pilots and technicians. Over the last Liberal decade, the Liberals have worsened this capability gap through mismanagement and completely ignoring the Auditor General's recommendations. So the question is, the Foreign Minister who was responsible for the military back in 2018 is still in his cabinet. Why?
Good question. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I was proud to stand yesterday with the Minister of National Defence, the Chief of the Defence Force, and announce the largest increase in military expenditure in decades. Building our military strong, building our military with Canadian technology, Canadian jobs, Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum. That's what the review of the F-35 is about. That's what the future of this country is about.
The honourable member for Charles Haute Saint Charles. Mr. Speaker, The Auditor General severely has criticized the government's management of the F-35 fighter purchase. It's now 50% over budget, $30 billion in costs. There are delays in construction, a lack of personnel, and insufficient oversight are threatening this project, and Canadians are paying the price. And the Prime Minister seems to have forgotten to mention that the new money announced yesterday is just to pay these cost overruns. He promoted the former Defence Minister. Why? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, one of the first measures that I took was a review of the F-35 contract. Because we have to do what's right for Canadians, what's right for Canada, what's right for our security, and we will report back to Parliament over the summer. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. The Prime Minister is the only thing that's new in this government, because the rest of the government is an old government, and we're seeing the problems with this incompetent old government. We've learned today, Mr. Speaker, from the Auditor General, that the main subcontractor of Arrive scam got $64 million from this Liberal government, even if it was under investigation by the RCMP. GC Strategies is a company with just 2 employees. It got 106 contracts from 31 federal organizations for a total value of $92.7 million. Is that Liberal incompetence, or is it corruption, or is it both? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, last year, after an independent process, the government suspended that company for 7 years. It's done. It's over. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, sit down. It's a little complicated. The Prime Minister gave Canadians back money that they had not paid. So it's an advance for a sum of money that they will not pay back. So about $4 billion was distributed to Canadians a week before the election, but not a cent to Quebecers. Can the Prime Minister explain this to Quebecers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I am proud that we cancelled the carbon tax. Quebec and British Columbia have their own systems. Our decision, including the decision on the last payment of the rebate, involves the rest of Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, it's completely illogical, Mr. Speaker. You pay back those who pay, not those who don't pay. But now that we know clearly that this has nothing to do with the carbon tax that was cancelled or that was criticized by the OECD, and we can understand that this money was a gift before the election and an injustice, does he recognize that the $3.7 billion that were given to Canadians have nothing to do with climate change? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Quebec, Mr. Speaker, Quebec didn't pay that consumer carbon tax. So it's not unjust, it's coherent that the rebate would continue one last time to allow an adjustment for families across Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I would be very happy to explain this because the carbon tax that applies in Quebec since 2013, I put it in place as Minister of the Environment. I'd be happy to explain that. The Prime Minister clearly is better with numbers than with facts. Will he compensate Quebecers for the $814 million that he owes them? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as the Bloc leader has just said, he created Quebec's own carbon tax system. It was different, and it's different across the country, including British Columbia. Our approach is coherent, it's fair, it's done.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General has once again exposed Liberal incompetence, highlighting millions wasted on their good friends and favourite consultants, GC Strategies. Not only have the Liberals not clawed back one penny from this scam, every Trudeau minister with his fingerprints on the scandal has been promoted by this Prime Minister. And now the Liberals are planning an extra $26 billion of taxpayer money for their insider consultant friends. Now, how about spend less on your insider friends and invest more in clawing back the money from GC Strategies?
L'honorable ministre de la...
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Mr. Speaker, I'll note that in March 2024, my department has terminated all contracts with GC Strategies and has revoked its security clearance so that it renders it ineligible for contracts that require that security clearance. But we went even further. The Office of Supplier Integrity last week determined that GC Strategies was ineligible for 7 years. This is a free, independent process, holding bad actors to account, working exactly as it should, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
Ended years after they were exposed. Now, $64 million went to Liberal friends at GC Strategies. Rampant sole sourcing of contracts with no justification and projects paid for despite no work being done. Incompetence is so ingrained in this government, they've actually ordered officials to put in writing that they are not violating procurement rules when they're granting contracts. Now the Liberals want $26 billion more for these consultants. When will the Liberals turn off the taps to their friends and focus instead on clawing back the money from this fraudulent GC Strategies?
The honourable Minister for Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Auditor General for her report and highlight that we have acted on previous reports by the Auditor General, and also from internal audits to increase transparency, increase data collection, increase oversight. But I also note, Mr. Speaker, that last year my department has terminated all contracts with GC Strategies, has revoked its security clearance, and as of last week, the Office of Supplier Integrity has rendered a decision making GC Strategy ineligible for contracts for 7 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Midnapore.
If you're spending $64 million on a product, you would probably think to at least do some price comparisons. Yet the Liberal government did no such thing. The Auditor General said that in 82% of GC Strategies contracts examined, there was no evidence that fees were being charged by this two-person company were based on a fair market value. Is this the Prime Minister's idea of a new fiscal discipline? Or does price really not matter to Liberals when it comes to paying their well-connected friends? When will we get our money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Mr. Speaker, let me be absolutely clear. Misconduct of any kind in the procurement process is never acceptable, which is why we've acted on previous recommendations from the Auditor General. And as of last year, GC Strategies has seen its contracts terminated by the Government of Canada, and we've revoked their security clearance. Now we went even further. The Office of Supplier Integrity has rendered a decision making GC Strategy ineligible for 7 years, Mr. Speaker. This is a process that's free and independent, holding bad actors to account, and it is working as it should. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Calgary Midnapore.
Check for fair market value. Canadians could hope that at least we got something in return for $64 million. Not the case here. This is how Liberals are spending your money. Overpaid and nothing to show for it. The Auditor General said only 54% of contracts audited could prove deliverables were received. Is this the Prime Minister's new fiscal discipline? Or for Liberals, is it business as usual? When will we get our money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation and go.
As I've highlighted in previous answers, in March 2024, PSPC has terminated all contracts with GC Strategies. We revoked their security clearance. Now, the Office of Supplier Integrity, which we've put in place after a thorough investigation, determined that GC Strategies met the threshold to be found ineligible for government contracts. As such, they are ineligible for the next 7 years. This is a process to hold bad actors accountable, because we will never accept and tolerate misconduct in the procurement process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, money doesn't grow on trees, but it sure seems to grow in the coffers of Liberal government insiders and contractors. Today we learned through the Auditor General's blistering report that 31 service procurement contracts had been awarded to GC Strategies for $92 million. Wow. The ministers didn't enforce security, the ministers didn't monitor contracts, and they didn't follow proper procurement policies. But guess what, Mr. Speaker? These same Trudeau ministers are in today's cabinet. Who is running that circus over there, and when will the Canadian taxpayer get their money back?
Right. The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Mr. Speaker, following a thorough investigation by the Officer of Supplier Integrity, last week a determination was made that GC Strategies should be ineligible for the next 7 years. This is a free and independent process we've put in place to hold bad actors to account, and it is working exactly as it should. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable, Lotbinière. Well, it's clear, Mr. Speaker, a Liberal is a scandal, Mr. Speaker. The Auditor General was very clear this morning in her report on GC Strategies, the Liberal ArriveCan app. This company, 2 people, $64 million in payments from the Liberals. The report reveals that we don't know who did the work, what was done, were the people who did the work qualified to do the work, and did they have the security clearance to do it? We don't know. And the ministers who allowed this, well, they all got promotions, Mr. Speaker. When will the Liberal Prime Minister get the money back that his government took from every Canadian's pocket? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In March 2024, PSPC ended all contracts with GC Strategies. We revoked the company's security clearance. They are ineligible for any government contract that requires security, and that was already the case. But last week, the government rendered a decision which makes GC Strategies inadmissible for any government contract for the next 7 years. This is an independent process that's working exactly the way that it should. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable, Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, GC Strategies didn't force the government to pay it $64 million. $64 million for an application that didn't work, that wasn't safe, which cost a lot more than expected. The ministers who authorized that spending are either members of the cabinet or in the Prime Minister's inner circle. Marco Mendicino, who's now the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff and a former Public Safety Minister. The former Minister who's now the Labour Minister. A scandal, a promotion. Is that how it works in Liberal world, Mr. Speaker? When will any of these ministers be declared ineligible? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's be clear, we will never accept any misbehavior from our providers. In March 2024, PSPC ended all contracts with GC Strategies and took away its security clearance. And last year, an independent board ensured that GC Strategies will be ineligible for any government contract for the next 7 years. This is a process that we put in place to make sure that any supplier do the work properly. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte-Acton. Mr. Speaker, if Ottawa is reinvesting in defence, that money needs to go into Quebec's economy. It needs to go to our aerospace sector, to our shipbuilding sector, to our AI sector, among others. We need to hire Quebec's suppliers instead of giving our money to the Americans, as we did with the F-35s. That's why the Bloc Québécois is proposing a bill for local purchasing to promote our businesses and make sure that there are economic benefits here. So the government's going to reinvest in the government. Will they follow the Bloc's lead? The Honourable Minister of National Defence. Mr. Speaker, we are proud to support Canadians and the Canadian Armed Forces. We will meet the 2% goal set by NATO, and that is also an investment in our defence industry here in Canada. There are about 300,000 jobs in Canada linked to the defence sector, and this investment will allow us to increase that number. We will obviously do what it takes for our Canadian Armed Forces. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte-Acton. Mr. Speaker, over 60% of aerospace in Canada is in Quebec, and that needs to be reflected in the contracts. Expertise in icebreakers, well, it's Quebec's shipbuilding industry that has it, and Let's remember that Quebec didn't get its fair share in the shipbuilding strategy. AI is another strength in Quebec. That also needs to be reflected in the contracts. Quebec deserves at least 22% of all defense investments, its fair share. But will the Minister commit to making that a floor for investment in Quebec?
De la Défense.
The Honourable Minister of National Defence. Mr. Speaker, this is good news for Canada, for Canadians, and for our Canadian Armed Forces. Yesterday, the Prime Minister announced an investment of $9.3 billion in Canada's defence. This means that we will hit this fiscal year the 2% target set by NATO. We are strengthening Canada's role as an international partner that is strong and reliable within NATO while rebuilding and rearming our Canadian Armed Forces.
Member for Thornhill.
The Auditor General's new report on housing shows just how badly this government has failed Canadians. Since 2018, the government spent over $300 million to fund a new bureaucracy called the Federal Lands Initiative. It built 309 units. That's less than 50 units a year. That's over $1 million a unit. Now the Prime Minister says he's going to create another bureaucracy to do exactly the same thing. So how much more Canadians' money will be flushed down the drain to pay for bureaucracies rather than paying for building homes?
L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Auditor General for her report regarding office space and federal lands, and I'll note that we accept all recommendations, but I also note that she highlights that progress has been made, and we're on the way to meeting our objectives in terms of affordable housings on public lands, on federal lands, and this is very good news for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Speaker, when you accept the findings and you do the exact same thing, Canadians who need a place to live are the ones that end up paying the price. The Federal Lands Initiative, the crown jewel of the government's agenda on building housing, has attained just 7% of its target. Wow. And the people in charge of that initiative are the now Justice Minister and the now Finance Minister. Wow. They actually got promoted. In the real world, incompetence of this magnitude has consequences. So I have a simple question. Which one of them's getting fired?
Yeah! The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm new to this place and thankful for the opportunity to be here. This new government is focused on moving forward and building affordable housing, using the federal lands that we can make available and partnering in good faith with mayors, with premiers, with chiefs, working in partnership and in synergy with all levels of government, leveraging federal lands. We will do that.
The Honourable Member for Bowmanville, Oshawa North.
Mr. Speaker, Liberals have spent over $300 million on a housing program, claiming they would build 4,000 units. In 7 years, they built 309. To put it bluntly, that's not close at all. They've missed the mark by 93%. So the question I have for the Prime Minister is how can he continue to have the minister responsible for this failure in his cabinet? And how can he promote that failed minister to now be our Minister of Justice?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Honourable Speaker, we have a great opportunity here to build housing, and when you look at the pathetic performance of Housing Minister Pierre Poilievre, who delivered 6 affordable housing units. 6 in 1 year.
That is a great point.
And 0 in the city of Vancouver, where I was serving.
Yeah,
0.
that's right.
That's a record that is deplorable, and that's a record that this government will never repeat. We are focused on building big.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
On Vancouver Island, high prices are pushing thousands of families and seniors out of the housing market. Meanwhile, the Auditor General says government is sitting on empty office buildings and surplus land. They promised 4,000 homes through their signature housing initiative. After 7 years, they've delivered a measly 309. For this failure, the housing minister has been promoted to the justice portfolio. There's no justice in that, Mr. Speaker. How can the Prime Minister reward such failure while people in my riding are struggling to find a place to live?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Well, I'm very honoured to be here as the new Housing and Infrastructure Minister and to go forward with initiatives that will deliver affordable housing across Canada. And we will look for the support of the members opposite. We will look for partnerships with all levels of government to deliver that. We use all of the tools of the federal government to deliver with Build Canada Homes. We have a lot of opportunities ahead of us. We've got to stay focused and working together.
Yeah.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the government found that 50% of federal offices were vacant or underutilised. The Liberals said they would cut that number in half to create housing. 8 years later, the Auditor General has confirmed a less than 2% reduction. None of the 10 properties promised in the capital have been transferred, and barely 309 of the 4,000 housing units have been built. Once again, big talk, but absolutely no walk. Why is the Liberal government failing to deliver even when the need is so great and the money has already been budgeted? The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Auditor General for her report, and we accept all of the recommendations therein to make sure that we meet our objectives when it comes to federal spaces and rental spaces. In the report, however, she also clearly maintains that we are on target for affordable housing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Dartmouth, Cole Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now more than ever, it's critical to invest in Canadian industry as we rebuild Canada's national defence capabilities. For example, in my riding, Cove is leading the way in creating solutions and sustainable growth for Canada's marine and maritime sectors.
Good stuff.
Can the Minister please expand on the government's plan to rebuild, reinvest in, and rearm our Canadian armed forces?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday this government announced a generational $9.3 billion investment in Canada's national defence. This means that we will reach NATO's 2% spending target this fiscal year, Mr. Speaker. This year. Reaching NATO's 2% target also means rebuilding our defence industrial capacity here at home and in Nova Scotia. There are almost 300,000 jobs across Canada in the broader defence sector, and this investment will grow that number. We will ensure Canada remains strong, sovereign and secure, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, we know how things work on the other side. Incompetence is rewarded. Today's Auditor General report reveals that the budget for our F-35s is 50% higher than expected. Initially, the project costs presented in 2022 by National Defence were based on 2019 data. In addition, the construction of infrastructure for the F-35s in Bagotville and Cold Lake is now 3 years behind schedule. Why are the Liberals unable to meet deadlines and stop cost overruns? The Honourable Minister for National Defence. Mr. Speaker, we'd like to thank the Auditor General for her work. In such a big project, it's normal for prices to evolve over time, especially with all the challenges that we have had to deal with through inflation and during the pandemic. National Defence and the government are working hand in hand with industry. These are very significant investments, the biggest investment in over 30 years. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, it's difficult for me to find the words to describe how badly the purchase of our F-35s has been managed. The costs are skyrocketing, now reaching almost $30 billion. There is a shortage of pilots and technicians, and we've been talking about this since 2018. Construction of facilities is behind schedule, with completion now expected in 2031. Mr. Speaker, this government is always late. Is it ready or is it incompetent? The Honourable Minister for National Defence. Mr. Speaker, we'd like to thank the Auditor General once again for her work and recommendations. We are committed to being open and transparent. National Defence will inform Canadians at every step of this process without compromising operational security. National Defence is keeping a close eye on costs and is working hand in hand with industry to make sure that we get the best cost for Canadians.
For Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General has reported that the cost of the F-35 jets has increased by billions, by almost 50%. I have a simple question. Are these increased costs included in the Prime Minister's recently announced plan to meet NATO's 2% target by April 1st of next year?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, we thank the Auditor General for her work. In a project this big, it's normal for costs to fluctuate over time, especially with all the challenges faced during the pandemic, like supply chain disruptions and inflation, as many F-35 participating NATO members have actually experienced. National Defence is working hand in hand with industry to make sure we get good value for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we are making the biggest investment in the Royal Canadian Air Force in over 30 years. This is about giving our aviators the tools they need to keep Canada safe.
Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, Finland is also undertaking this big project. They announced their purchase of F-35 jets around the same time Canada did in early 2022. Finland purchased 64 jets, Canada 88. The Auditor General has reported that facilities and training for the F-35s are years behind schedule. The Finns F-35s will achieve full operational capability in 2030. This government won't achieve that until at least 2033-34, years behind the Finns. Why can't the government deliver these jets on time and on budget?
Right.
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we thank the Auditor General for her work and our recommendations. We're taking close note of them and moving to implement many of them already. We're committed to being open and transparent, where National Defence will keep Canadians updated every step of the way without compromising operational security. I'm sure the member doesn't imply that we should be doing so. National Defence is keeping a close eye on costs, working hand in hand with industry to make sure we get the best value for Canadians. We remain focused, Mr. Speaker, on supporting our top Canadian aviators as we procure a new fleet of fighter jets.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Today's Auditor General reports reveals the shocking contempt that this Liberal government has for matters of national security. They can't demonstrate that security clearances were held by 50% of the contracts that they awarded to GC Strategies. And in more than 20% of the cases, contractors were working without the required clearances. They didn't check before the work began. They don't know if the work got done. There weren't security clearances for the workers, but they cut the checks anyway. And then this Prime Minister gave the ministers responsible a promotion. So through you, Speaker, will the Prime Minister stand up today and tell us when we get our money back?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I noted in previous answers, in March 2024, PSPC revoked the security clearance of GC Strategies. We've also terminated all contracts because we will always hold bad actors to account. And last week, the Office of Supplier Integrity rendered a decision making GC Strategy ineligible for the next 7 years. This is a process that is independent, that is free of political intervention, to hold bad actors to account, and it is working exactly as it should.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, I'm glad the Minister knows that that's working exactly as it should, because they don't know that about any of the work GC Strategies did. $100 million, no deliverables can be proven, no security clearances were had, and the Minister's talking about them not doing work in the future. Fine. What we want to know is about the work they didn't do in the past that Canadians paid $100 million for. So, to the Minister, through you, Speaker, stand up, tell us what date are Canadians getting their $100 million back, when?
L'honorable Ministre de la Transformation du Gouvernement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Auditor General for her report. As I've mentioned earlier, the Office of Supplier Integrity has rendered a decision last week making GC Strategy ineligible for future contracts by the Government of Canada. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, these Liberals handed $20 million taxpayer dollars to GC Strategies for their Arrive scam. This for a company that did no work, whose office was raided by the RCMP and is implicated in fraud. And today we learn from the Auditor General that millions more went to GC Strategies without any proof that work was done. This is absolutely outrageous. When can taxpayers expect a refund?
When? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Auditor General for her report, and we've acted on all recommendations she's made in previous reports as well as internal audits. And as I've noted earlier, the Office of Supplier Integrity last week made a decision to make GC Strategy ineligible for future contracts for a period of 7 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good answer.
Member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General found no proof of work for a staggering 46% of contracts awarded to GC Strategies.
Wow.
And yet, these Liberals consistently authorized payment. Millions of taxpayer dollars went improperly out the door without any meaningful oversight. So who over there is going to stand up, take responsibility, and get taxpayers their money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've noted, we've acted on all recommendations by the Auditor General in previous report. I thank her for her work. We will always hold bad actors to account. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, last week the Office of Supplier Integrity made a decision to make GC Strategy ineligible for future contracts for a period of 7 years. This is a process that's working as it should. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
$64.5 million. That's how much taxpayer money this Liberal government gifted their friends over at the top, Arrive scam contractor. Friends, Mr. Speaker, who are now under RCMP investigation, yet the Trudeau ministers responsible for this scandal, far from being held accountable, have actually been promoted to the Ministers of U.S. Trade, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Minister of Jobs. So my question to the Prime Minister is, when will there be some actual accountability for the millions of dollars in fraud, and when will the hardworking men and women of this country get their money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Mr. Speaker, and let me be very clear, misconduct of any kind by suppliers is never acceptable, and we will always hold bad actors to account. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, the Office of Supplier Integrity last week made a decision making GC Strategy ineligible for contracts for a period of 7 years. We've also terminated in March 2024 all contracts with GC Strategies, revoked their security clearance. We will always hold bad actors to account. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Laval-les-Îles. Mr. Speaker, Quebec operates its own carbon pricing system, which has proved effective in reducing pollution. Today, the Bloc Québécois is asking the federal government for a refund, even though Quebec had decided not to participate in the federal carbon pricing system. So essentially, the Bloc Québécois is asking for its cake and to eat it too. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister for Environment and Climate Change tell the Bloc the truth? The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change. The carbon pricing rebate has been in place for many years. Quebec has its own carbon pricing system, and the federal fuel charge does not apply in Quebec. Therefore, Quebecers did not receive the Canadian carbon rebate. We respect Quebec and have been consistent on this issue. The Bloc Québécois should support our efforts to fight climate change and protect our environment, rather than just playing petty politics.
Honourable Member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
The Auditor General tabled a scathing report today on how the Liberals paid GC Strategies, which is now under RCMP investigation, $64 million. In 46% of the contracts reviewed, federal organizations had little to no evidence of receiving deliverables, yet government officials continued to pay. Given the ministers responsible have yet to get the money back from these fraudsters, how did they get promoted into this Prime Minister's cabinet?
The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation.
I thank the Auditor General for her report, and for previous reports she's made on this matter. We've acted on all of her recommendations to increase accountability, transparency, data collection, and to clarify the rules, the roles, and the responsibilities. And let me be very clear, Mr. Speaker, we will always hold bad actors to account. As a matter of fact, we've revoked the security clearance of GC Strategies. The Office of Supplier Integrity has acted on GC Strategies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
$64 million in fraudulent spending on GC Strategies and not a cent returned. Today's Auditor General reports have slammed this government. The F-35s are 50% over budget, up from $19 billion to nearly $30 billion, with more increases expected. Millions spent on transforming office space into housing and no homes built. Why, under this Liberal government, are Canadians spending so much and getting so little?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Par rapport aux espaces.
Thank you. With regards to the office space, I would like to thank the Auditor General, and we accept all the recommendations that she has submitted to the government. I would like to note that in her report she notes that we are on track to meet our affordable housing goals.
Dundas.
Today's Auditor General report show the true extent of Liberal incompetence and waste. Taxpayers are on the hook for $14 billion in F-35 fighter jet overruns, and the Arrive scam report confirms that a two-person firm received $64 million in contracts for little to no work, and $0 have been returned to the taxpayer. And what does this Prime Minister do? He promotes the very ministers responsible for these scandals into his own cabinet. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, U.S. Trade, and the Minister of Jobs as well. If he's rewarding these failed ministers, how can Canadians respect receiving a penny of the money back?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Speaker, because the member mentioned the Canadian Armed Forces, this government is proud to champion the outstanding work of the women and men of the Canadian Armed Forces. Last month, our forces were deployed on Operation Carib, where they successfully conducted seizures of more than 1,300 kilograms of cocaine in the Caribbean Sea. This month, our forces have been deployed across Canada on Operation Lentus to evacuate Canadians from dangerous wildfires, and that work continues in Sandy Lake today, Mr. Speaker. The contributions of our brave forces at home and around the world are simply and incredibly remarkable, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Agincourt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Right now, trade diversification is top of mind for many of the small businesses in Scarborough Agincourt and also for Canadians across the country. Our new Minister of International Trade has already met with counterparts and business partners in South America and Europe. Can the Minister of International Trade tell us how he plans to diversify Canada's trade portfolio in the current geopolitical climate?
The Honourable Minister for International Trade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague from Scarborough Agincourt for her tireless advocacy. Mr. Speaker, I've hit the ground running. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Ecuador meeting with regional leaders and marking the conclusion of a new trade agreement that's to come. Last week, I was in Paris meeting with a dozen trade ministers to talk trade and economic opportunities. Mr. Speaker, Canada has what the world needs. I will continue working with industry leaders to discuss opportunities around the Indo-Pacific, European Union, and many regions around the world. Mr. Speaker, trade diversification will help create jobs here at home and help build the fastest growing economy in the G7. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South, Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, the Arrive scam contractors made off with $64 million of taxpayer dollars. Multiple software developers in Waterloo region have told me that a couple of them could have done it over a weekend. The contractors didn't write any code. Their only job was to make sure the actual code writers had the proper security clearances. But today, the Auditor General tells us they didn't even manage to do that. Meanwhile, the F-35 program is 50% over budget. That's $14 billion over budget, and we still don't have any jets. Could the Prime Minister perhaps produce a budget accounting for all of this? Could that budget perhaps include less fraud and waste?
The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. I would also like to thank the Auditor General for her work and her recommendations. We've acted upon previous reports to make sure there's more accountability and transparency from our providers, because we'll always hold them to account. And so, Mr. Speaker, my department in March 2024 revoked GC Strategy's clearance, ended all contracts, and last week the company has been deemed inadmissible for 7 years. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister keeps saying that he won't be able to impose a pipeline without the agreement of the provinces. The problem is that his Bill C5 does not say that at all. In fact, it says quite the opposite. In fact, once a project is deemed to be in the national interest, it's over. It's over. Game over. Neither the provinces, nor the First Nations, nor Canadians, nor Quebecers, nor cities will be able to stop it. It will happen, whatever the cost, and it will take 2 years at most. That's a huge gift for big companies. Why does the Prime Minister, who was elected to prevent the Conservatives from winning, think it's a good idea to realize Pierre Poilievre's wildest and most dangerous dreams? The Honourable Minister for Transport and Domestic Trade. Mr. Speaker, 1 week ago I was in Saskatoon with the Prime Minister and the Premiers of provinces and territories, including the Premier of Quebec. Every single premier talked about the need to build significant projects throughout Canada. For example, the projects in Montreal. I spoke about my Montreal projects with Minister Guilbeault of Quebec. We have to build Canada, and we must do so together.
Honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians were shocked to learn that Indian Prime Minister Modi has been invited to the G7 meetings here. This is deeply troubling and hurtful for the Sikh community and for all Canadians that are concerned about human rights and foreign interference. And now we find out that the Saudi leader has also been invited. This G7 is becoming, honestly, it's becoming a showcase of tyrants. Will this Prime Minister rescind those invitations and make sure that the people coming to this G7 believe in human rights and believe in people, not profits?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and I have spoken with our Indian counterparts, and there has been an agreement for continued law enforcement dialogue. I will say, Mr. Speaker, that the G7 is a critical forum for global leaders to have productive and frank discussions. The RCMP's independent investigation is ongoing, and in this country, the rule of law will never be compromised. We will always stand up for the safety and security of Canadians. Thank you.
And that brings question period to a close.